It has been over 20 years since these events have occurred. I did not feel I would ever tell my story until I came across this subreddit. I was reluctant to share what happened to me because I did not feel like arguing against doubt and disbelief or defending my own sanity. Here I can tell you with less of these fears. This is what took place as I best remember. In the late 1980s, as a curious teen, I became fascinated with the occult. As a child growing up in a religious household, my first exposure of occult themes came from the Bible. I always strained to understand my beliefs concerning the teachings of the church, and especially struggled with my own faith in God. After learning that demons were former angels who had rebelled against God, were cast down to earth, and could interact with humans, I came to the conclusion that the best way to prove to myself that God existed was to see if demons existed. There was no internet back then to explore my questions and sate my curiosity. Knowledge of the occult was hard to come by and had to be searched for in libraries and bookstores. In time, I collected a small library of books about witchcraft and demonology. Looking back now, I realize how foolish I was. I didn't understand what I was getting myself into. Those books have since been destroyed after what happened to me. I began reading these books and actively trying to invite demons into my life. I read, out loud, long strings of demonic names out of the books. I would cast spells and draw symbols on my walls and on the floor. Nothing happened. I had a few strange dreams, but that wasn't proof of anything. Then one day I came across a paragraph that told me to get a full clove of garlic and stake it with a large iron nail to attract demonic power to a place. I did this and put the staked clove deep in my closet. The demons didn't come to me suddenly with a large fanfare. They came gradually, insidiously working their way into my life and psyche without me hardly noticing, until they were ready. Then they pounced, and I was almost destroyed. I woke up more frequently with nightmares. I woke up sometimes listening intently, because I could have sworn that what had awoken me was laughter or whispering. I passed these off as dreams. Sometime I woke up paralyzed for a few seconds. I passed this off as sleep paralysis. I woke up sometimes with all my sheets of the floor, far from the bed. I awoke some nights thinking, was my bed just moving? I passed this off as restless sleep. Then one night, I woke up to watch my hand and arm shoot out from my side, grab the lamp on my night table, and throw it across the room with such force that I pulled my shoulder out, and the lamp practically exploded against the opposite wall. I sat in the dark, cradling my arm, wondering how I could do such a thing out of a dead sleep. A few nights later, I did the same thing with a new lamp, with the same arm. I had to wear a sling to restrict movement of the shoulder. A few nights later, it happened one more time, but I didn't grab the lamp. I tore the sling right off my neck. I thought these things were very strange, but I still proceeded to invite the demons. I was still not convinced. I was a fool. I became irritable, and my family started to notice. I became lazy with my schoolwork, distant and withdrawn and argumentative. My parents thought I might be on drugs. I was brought to a psychologist who tested me for them and diagnosed me with depression. I told no one what I was up to. Over time, the odd occurrences increased, but due to time and space and some embarrassment, I will leave some out. I will tell you that late one night, I awoke to the full moon shining on my face through a window. I debated telling you this part because it sounds so strange, but I began growling at the moon. I remember not thinking as myself. My thoughts were basic and primal. I began growling more ferociously, until I was practically foaming at the mouth and snapping at the moon like a rabid animal. I eventually snapped out of this and wondering what the hell I was doing. I didn't know yet, but at this point the demons were ready to pounce. They felt they had weakened me enough and worn down the walls between worlds within my room enough to extract my soul from my body. These next recollections are the most vivid in my mind. One night I awoke and felt very strange. I felt a jarring disjointedness. Then part of myself lifted out of my feet and then worked up my body until I was floating above the bed. It felt something like if you were to smoothly pull a piece of tape off of a flat surface. I was floating above my bed, and I was looking down on myself. I tried to move, but knew somehow that I would have had to learn how. After being amazed at what was happening, I then felt that something grabbed me by my feet or lower part of myself and started to violently shake me like a rag doll. I felt like a streamer being whipped back and forth. I saw one side of the room, then the other flash before my eyes. Something was trying to tear me away from a connection I still had to my body lying on the bed. I was terrified, and I knew that if whatever was doing this to me succeeded, I would die. But the cord, I don't know what it was, tying me to my body was too strong. They could not break it. They gave up and let go, and I floated lazily up to the ceiling. I remember distinctly my cheek resting lightly against the ceiling of my room. I set my eyes on a specific imperfection on the ceiling I had studied many times from below, but it was now inches from my face. I remember thinking how it looked different from there. Suddenly I was in the bed, looking up at the ceiling where I just was. I was taking deep breaths like I needed air. I still felt strange and was paralyzed with fear. I felt my chest getting heavy. I took a deep breath, but the feeling stayed. Now I felt as if I was being pushed down, but did not feel any pressure in a specific place. It was as if some invisible weight had been draped over my torso and was getting heavier. I remember thinking that this is just a dream. There's no way any of this is happening. Then I heard a sound I will never forget as long as I live. I heard the sound of the bed creaking. I was sinking into the bed, and the sound of the bed warping under the increasing weight was real. This was really happening. In a frenzy of fear, I burst out of the bed and ran out of the room and the house. I went to my sister's house, who lived next door, and woke her up to let me in. I was wide-eyed and hyperventilating. She eventually calmed me down and began asking questions. I did not tell her about what I had been doing and told her I saw a ghost. She laughed it off and told me to stay the night if I wanted to. I stayed, but I did not sleep again that night. By the next day, I know what I had to do. So I went back to my house and up to my room. I quickly went into the closet, grabbed the clove of garlic with the staked nail, which was now black, and took it outside. My parents' house is made of stone, and I found the largest open space of wall with no windows and threw the clove against the stone. I swear the thing exploded against the wall like I had thrown a grenade. There was nothing left. I never found a piece of that clove or the nail. I threw all occult materials, objects, and books I had into the wood stove and burned them. I cleaned the symbols off the walls and furniture. And I never slept in that room again. Nothing like what I have told you ever happened to me after. I think whatever demonic and human it was had their one chance, but they failed, and they never bothered me again. So do I now believe in God? Surprisingly, I'm still not sure that I do. But I do know that there are absolutely malicious entities in this world, and if you invite them into your life, they will gladly come in. I read a study once where psychologists took a group of students who tested on the same level and split them into two classes. One class was told they were advanced and were challenged and praised for their intelligence. The other class was told they were remedial and were given easier tasks and criticized for their failings. At the end of the study, they retested the students and found the advanced group scored higher than they had coming in, while the remedial group scored lower. Ethical issues aside, the study proved that perception affected reality. Students fit into the negative and positive molds they were subjected to. I learned about this study in college when I took an early childhood education elective, hoping it would help me become a good foster parent. That study turned out to be more relevant than I could ever have imagined when I welcomed my first child into my home. Her name was Alexis, and she had a sister, Oakley. In a sort of bastardized parallel to the study, Oakley was raised being told she was descended from angels and doted on, while Alexis was told she was the daughter of demons and left to rot. I won't go into any details beyond telling you Alexis was locked in a basement until the day her sister slipped up at school and revealed her existence to a teacher. The teacher contacted the authorities, Alexis was rescued, the parents were arrested, and the children were put into foster care. The sisters were like day and night. Oakley was a plump little blonde-haired girl with a big bright smile and a happy spirit, and Alexis was a gaunt, barely communicative recluse who scowled and snarled at everyone. When the social worker told me Alexis' story, I offered to take her in. I was determined to give her all the love and attention she deserved. What can I say? I was full of blind optimism and desperately wanted to help a little girl who'd gone through hell. I signed the papers and was told to wait in the hall while they brought her out. As soon as I left the office, I found her sitting on the bench, legs swinging. She looked downright feral with her head of matted brown hair, yellowed teeth, and tattered clothes. "Alexis?" I asked softly. We locked eyes, and she stared at me with the desperate stare of a shelter cat. I held out my hand. She took it, and I brought her home. I quickly became disenchanted with my foster care fantasy. I'd imagined mentoring, emotional breakthroughs, and deep conversations about life. All things I'd wanted when I was on the receiving end of the system. I wanted to offer better than what I'd been given, but the truth is, it's not as easy as it looks. Alexis was difficult in ways I expected, like refusing to eat anything red one day and not eating her favorite food another because the carrots touched it, but she was also difficult in ways I wasn't equipped to handle. I'd wake up some mornings to find demonic symbols carved into the walls. She'd sometimes babble in some made-up language, no, not Latin. She'd hoard candles and lighters under her bed, things like that. I knew it was all her conditioning. She'd been called a demon all her life, so now she acted like one, but it was unsettling. No amount of love or devotion seemed to improve her behavior. Things escalated as the weeks wore on. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of furniture being dragged across the floor. It was slow at first, as though an attempt was being made to keep quiet. But, as I got up to investigate, the scraping became louder, rushed, more frantic. I walked down the hallway with a flashlight in hand and followed the ruckus to its source, Alexis' room. There, I put my ear to the door and listened carefully. Maybe it was just my tired, sleepy brain imagining things or the echo, but I could have sworn it sounded like there were multiple objects being pushed at once. I opened the door to ask Alexis what she was doing, and the scraping immediately stopped. To my surprise, I found her sitting in bed, eyes wide and staring at me like an owl. More surprising was the fact that every single piece of furniture in her room had been moved. Not just a few inches here and there. Both her dressers were now on the opposite wall. Her bed had been rotated and pushed against the window. Her vanity had been knocked over and dragged halfway across the room, and her big metal toy chest now rested against the door. You have to understand, I was dealing with a frail, sickly little girl. The strength it would take to move all that furniture. I had had trouble getting it in there without help. For a child to do it at all, let alone this skinny, malnourished child, it would have taken Herculean strength or something. I wondered if this was part of her conditioning somehow. Maybe it took roots so deep that she was able to perform inhuman feats, like a mother lifting a car to save her dying child. I didn't want to scold her because it was her room, and I interpreted rearranging the furniture as a sign that she was making herself at home. I didn't want to stifle her ability to take control of her environment, you know? This was important to her. I gently told her I'd help her in the morning if she wanted to move anything else, and then went back to bed. I was a little less understanding when some of my kitchen knives went missing. I tried every technique in the book to get them back. I asked nicely. I said they could be returned anonymously. I promised there would be no repercussions. I bribed. I lied about their emotional value. I explained the dangers, but nothing worked. I even ransacked her room, but couldn't find them. To this day, I still have no idea where she hid them. Another night, I woke up to her standing over me, her dark eyes reflecting the faintest glimmer of the streetlight outside, making her look even more owl-like. "What's wrong, Alexis?" I asked, as I twisted around to turn on the bedside lamp. "Did you have a bad dream?" I was ready to pull her into bed and comfort her, but when I turned back around, she was gone. No footsteps, no squeal of a door opening and closing. She was just gone. I got out of bed and checked up on her, but she was fast asleep. One morning, I woke to a cold bedroom. There was something muggy in the air, making it hard to breathe, and my sheets were uncomfortably damp. I opened my eyes to the dark room and swung my legs over the edge of the bed. As my feet touched the ground, I felt wetness. I remember thinking blood. I imagined a pool of it beneath my feet trickling out from a dead, mutilated animal stuffed under my bed. Thankfully, there was no such thing. I think that's when I realized Alexis' conditioning was so intense that it was transferring onto me, making me think the most ridiculous thoughts. I flicked the lights on, and though there was no blood in my room, there was something just as strange. My entire bedroom was covered in dew. Yes, like on grass in the morning. It was everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, the curtains. It peppered my dresser and overtook my mirror. I have no idea how it happened. My windows were closed and my heating was on, so I have no idea how all that humidity accumulated in my room. I spent the day cleaning up and running fans to prevent mold. After that, I had nightmares almost every night. I'd dream of waking up and seeing Alexis owl-like eyes watching down at me from the ceiling, from the walls, from under the bed, and from the very back of my closet. I knew it was wrong to let her tragic past influence me, but I felt some relief in knowing that's all it was. We were both normal students told we were in a remedial classroom. I just had to keep telling myself that there was nothing wrong. even when the dreams became so vivid they bled into my waking life. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom and feel her presence behind me, or her breath in my ear, or catch a glimpse of her running down the hall when I knew damn well she was fast asleep. God damn it, we were normal. I wasn't going to let myself be poured into her negative mold. I was here to reshape her, not the other way around. One of the creepiest things to me was what you see in every horror movie involving kids, her drawings. It was never anything quite as unsettling as, say, demonic faces scrawled across all the pages of a notebook or an axe murder scene or anything like that. But every time she drew herself into a picture, she drew a kind of dark halo around her body. It wasn't threatening or anything, but it spoke volumes about how she perceived herself, you know? I think that was the true horror to me, knowing that even months later, her parents still had such a huge negative impact on how she viewed herself. After months of unconditional love, she still saw herself as a monster. She still snarled at strangers. She still lashed out at me if I tried talking to her. She still moved all manner of furniture at night. She still mumbled in that incomprehensible tongue. Last night, as I sat in bed thinking about what to try next to help her, I had an idea. This little girl had lost everything. She'd been uprooted from her life, lost her home as bad as that home was, her parents, her sister, and that got me thinking. Maybe I could arrange a play date with her sister. Maybe seeing a familiar face would make her feel better. Which brings us to today. I contacted the agency this morning. I introduced myself and asked about Alexa's sister, Oakley. I intended to start with small talk and ease into my request. I asked how Oakley was, but I got a cold reception from the woman on the phone. She asked me why I wanted to know, and I was really put off by the brash tone in her voice. I explained I'd been fostering her sister and was wondering if they could meet up. I explained I thought it would be good for Alexis to be around her sister a bit provided the other foster family was okay with the reunion. There was a long silence on the line before I heard drawers opening and closing followed by the shuffling of papers. Sorry, who did you say you were again? She asked. I let out a nervous laugh. There was something off in the tone of her voice, something that wove my vocal cords and esophagus into a tight braid. I shakily gave her my name again. Papers shuffled. She asked me to repeat. I did. We. She seemed hesitant, as though unsure whether she could tell me, but she did. You left before we gave you Alexis. We thought you changed your mind. She's with a different family. What she said next was a blur as my mind raced to understand. Had I taken the wrong child? But then, what about all the weird happenings around my house? In a haze, I asked who I was fostering and was told I didn't have a foster child. I protested, but she checked, and all the foster kids were accounted for. I don't know who or what is sleeping in Alexis' bedroom right now. The psychologist's study never mentioned there was a third room. One morning after mowing the lawn, I found a strange crimson velvet envelope between the cracks in the ground. Surrounded by an eerie pink-reddish glow, it was mesmerizing to look at. I felt drawn to it, almost like it was placed there on purpose for me to find. I always was a firm believer in the supernatural, but I never got a chance to experience it. I thought this might be a unique opportunity to see once and for all if there's something more to it. I thought I could finally get the answers I've been searching for my whole life. I always thought about it, and my mind was provoked by this question, by this never-ending string of dark and twisted enigmas that have always filled my soul. What were heaven and hell like? Was there a purgatory also? What if all we ever knew was fake and not according to the reality that was beyond the veil of human perception? The more I looked at the strange envelope, the more it began to take a hold of my spirit. This energy that started flowing through my body was something evil, I think. That's how it felt at first. A strange sensation of the purest evil, indescribable in human words, was dropping needles in my soul like it wanted to perform a voodoo ritual on it. My mind, body, and spirit all became weakened by this amazing and crushing force that was coming from that envelope. So I gave in to it. I let it take over. I didn't even try to fight it. My desire to see and feel the supernatural transcended my will to live. It was at this moment I knew I could find something bigger than me, bigger than humanity itself. The envelope was sealed in blood. It was signed to you by an old demon. I started feeling scared, fear clouding my mind. its poisonous arms reaching within the very dark and cold abyss of my consciousness. Right under the seal, it said, "Pour your own blood over the seal to open this letter," written in minuscule letters. This raw, powerful energy was taking over me, replacing whoever I was with something anew, with something powerful and evil at the same time. But there was something else I was feeling then, some sort of guilt, sadness, of not belonging. But they were not mine. The letter was emanating them. I could feel that. I bit my finger and let blood drops fall on the seal. I felt displaced, lost in time and space forever. The letter was short, and I'll write it here verbatim because it felt very, very frightening to read it. I don't know how, but I remember it word by word. Dear human, I didn't want you to ever find this letter, let alone read it. But yet here we are. I'm sick of it all, yet I still have to do it. It's too late for you, dear host. But I think you'll be the lucky one. The luckiest of them all. I want it to be my final time doing this. I want to wither away, to die. I want to be destroyed. Obliterated into the infinite pitch black, empty, and cold void. I will let you live after taking over you. Those before you never had this chance, simply because the process corrupted their mind and soul in a way that never allowed them to live anymore. You will see ugly and evil things. You will experience pain and fear you have never experienced before. Call this letter a curse for those who find it. But you will live. You will live because I will die. Before this process is complete and insanity will take over you, I will be dead. This has been going on since before I can remember, since your kind started walking the earth. I don't exactly know its final purpose, nor did I even ever bother to understand it. Simply, my kind has to do it to your kind. It's always been this way and always will be. I know you are afraid. I know your hands are shaking while reading this. You know this is not a game, and you know there is no escape from this. All you have to do is to bite your finger and pour a few drops of blood on the page. Let me show you something new. With sadness, an old demon. I felt more and more empowered by the evil things the letter emanated. I knew this was not a joke. I signed the paper with my blood. It caught fire, its pinkish flames slowly engulfing me. I screamed in pain, but not because I was burning. It was a pain coming from the fact that I was being slowly taken to another plane, bit by bit. I faded to black in a way. I was still aware, though, and when I opened my eyes a bit, a large glass tube was all that I saw. The tube seemed infinite, and the black smoke that filled it was not damaging me physically. But when that cleared, I saw twisted faces of evil beings, their shiny teeth bleeding acid spit on the glass tube. They were everywhere. Their sharp claws were scratching at the surface, trying to break in and feed. I could see the hunger in their eyes, hatred fueling whatever they held inside their minds and bodies. The deformities howled and screeched a ravenous desire to eat me. That was my last memory of being inside the tube. Right after seeing those horrifying creatures, I passed out completely. I don't know how much time I spent inside that tube. Time seemingly wasn't a thing inside it. It was just endless, infinite, darkness all around me. Coming back to my senses, I found myself in a small room. Although it was dimly lit by a flickering yellow light bulb, it was very dark. Right in front of me, there was a chair. It was wrapped in the exact same red velvet that the envelope was made of. "Please, sit down," the baritonal voice said, making the room tremble as if the eons that passed suddenly had a voice. A voice expressing all kinds of existential terrors and horrors that its owner had witnessed with the passing of this strange man-invented construct, time. I felt fear licking my brain, and its awful embrace kept me in place, rendering me unable to move. The fear that built up inside me was life-threatening. I knew that in the medical sense of things, a person could be scared to death. My opinion was that it wouldn't take me long to get there. Whatever was in that room with me, whatever presence loomed in the thick, damp, and heavy air, made me fear for my life. The room started shaking, and I sat down on the chair. The voice told me to close my eyes. Red flashes started running before them, even though everyone can only see darkness when they close their eyes. I heard a door opening, then closing shut. There wasn't any door when I first came here. Yet again, I was absolutely positive that the natural laws, the ones we guided our lives after, did not work here. More so, this wasn't anything natural. Open your eyes, the same voice once again told me. A wave of shock and horror pierced through my heart. It split my soul into halves, never to be repaired again. My mind shattered into thousands of small shards. I was no longer me. Fear took its throne inside my body. The war raged on between what I thought before and what stood in front of me now. A fiend-like shadow, its eyes burning a bright, red hue, fixated me. It was impossible to look at, yet here I was. The monstrosity stood before me as if it knew me from childhood hours, even from before I was born. The smoky shadow let out a sigh, then a sad smile revealed its shiny teeth. The way or maybe I should say his face, contorted into something that revealed a dark, endless and timeless sadness hit me so hard. The first thing that came to mind, the way I could picture this sadness that I was seeing, was a barren wasteland with dark clouds in the sky. Just that. Endless clouds being carried away by a worn-out, weary wind above the wastelands of the fiend's former self. Don't be scared, child. I will not hurt you. I hope, the demon fiend said. I stood aghast, static buzzing through my skull. I always wanted to experience things like this, but not in a way where fear would invade my whole body like a leech from hell. You will be the last one for me. The last human I will possess before I end myself. I can't take it anymore. I chose you because you always wanted to see something that pertains to the supernatural, the demon said, its baritone voice sounding like 1,000 metallic hums and clicks overlapping each other. I just want to talk to you a little bit before we do this. I nodded. Shivers ran down my spine, and everything I thought I knew before was obliterated by this new experience. This place is called the Hollow. It is an antechamber to hell. You heard that door opening and closing, yes? What lies on the other side will make you lose your mind, and it's not even hell itself behind it. He sighed, a deep, dark sadness escaping his mouth. I nodded. The fear that was reigning supreme inside me didn't let me speak yet. The Hollow was a place where all soon-to-be possessed people go. There they could sit face to face with the demon that would take over their body. Some of them would tell secrets and forbidden knowledge. Others would say nothing at all. They could show you other worlds, or just mock, hurt, and eventually possess you like you were nothing. I think the common thing for all people who have been inside this room was fear. A deep, unending, seething fear. I need you to help carry me to a place where I will kill myself. There we will find a pool, where I will drown because I am tired, the demon said. I finally got my voice back. I was fearful, but yet again this is not how I wanted to find out about the existence of the supernatural. I didn't want my first experience with it to be me being a vessel for a suicidal demon. The Hollow started to tremble, and the demon told me we need to hurry. The process will be painful, and fear would probably leave eternal marks and scars on my mind. Are you ready, child? The demon asked me. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. He crashed into my chest like a rifle had just been emptied inside me. The pain was an eternal flame of hate, a superior being that transcended everything I knew before. The fiend spread itself across my whole body and took over me. Soon, he dictated all my actions and movements. My train of thought wasn't my own anymore. I became a prisoner. The purple door appeared in front of me. I let out a scream inside my own mind, only for it to be swallowed whole by the demon's voice. I will shield you from the insanity. You will be all right. Let's go to the pool, he finally said. The door opened, and a black long corridor was revealed. It was similar in a way to the tube in which my travel here was done. Men and women were plastered all over its walls. The demon told me that his higher-ups sometimes got off on gluing sinners on the walls, especially murderers, rapists, and pedophiles. Their never-ending screams would echo into the eternity to which they had been condemned. Cries for help and screams of anguish filled the corridor. The absence of light was not a problem for me. I could see through the demon's eyes all the way to the end of this black, horizontal place fit only for beasts and former human psychopaths. What made this new sight special was that it looked like I had a fire in my eyes. Don't know how to better explain it. Like when you look through fire and see on the other side. That's exactly what this was. We need to hurry. He knows something's happening. The demon screamed inside my brain. Who knows? I asked, fear breaking my mind's voice. You know who? He said. I started running, although I was not in control anymore. I ran and ran and ran. It felt like an eternity. We reached another door. It was ancient and the wood was cracked. A howl, followed by a deep groan, echoed throughout the corridor behind me, silencing every scream that came from those sinners trapped in the walls. I heard the behemoth rampaging towards me, and not even for a second did I dare to turn my head around and see what or who it was. I didn't, because deep down inside I knew who he was. I opened the door, and a bright white light hit me in the face. I was temporarily blinded by this powerful beam, but soon came back to it. Run, the demon cried. A circular construction made of stone was taking shape as I was approaching it. Water filled it, colored black. It moved unnatural, as all things were here. Droplets of dark water rose in the air, dancing under the silvery sky above me. A dark red sun split into four was bleeding its core in the air, regenerating itself infinitely. Skeletal birds were flying in the sky, their screams of hateful spite making my soul shake. Trees made out of teeth were chattering when touched by the infernal winds of this place. This is a demon graveyard. The ones who die are buried here. That water over there is sometimes used for healing, other times for inflicting pain upon those who do not follow orders. White is for healing, black for pain, the demon said. He told me to part my skin because the dark water needed blood. The crimson liquid was caught, almost like it was eaten by the floating dark water droplets. Then they collapsed into the pool, hitting it like a giant rock was dropped from the hell's heavens. A sort of maelstrom was formed, and I looked inside it, but saw no end. It looked like a bottomless pit. I saw only dead bodies, grotesque skeletons, and horns filling the void, floating around in the endless space like discarded carcasses of evil. We need to jump. You'll be back to your world safe. I want this to be my grave. My eternal home, he sighed, right before I leaped. I felt him leave my body, almost like something from the void pulled him out from me. He was floating, still alive. Thank you for your help, he said, his final words carrying feelings of relief and regret. Two long arms extended from the blackness and kept him in place. They ripped him into two, an explosion of bright light filling the void for a second. It blinded me, and I fainted. I woke up back on the steps of my house. A ringing sound filled my head, and I could still hear the screams of those plastered people from the dark corridor. The mark on my hand was still there, the bloodied scratch still showed. I think about it even to this day. What I experienced was borderline insane, but it was only a small part of things we don't know. I got my wish fulfilled by fulfilling a demon's wish. The things I saw will haunt me forever. The subsequent fear emerging from those events is eternally embedded in me like a tattoo made of darkness. I wonder, what else is out there that we can't see?